Well, and it's all about the historic failings at the housing service at Guildford Borough Council. That's Jack Fiehn reporting this morning. Well, let's bring in Suzanne Mooner, who's from the Social Housing Action Campaign. Morning to you. Hello.
Hello there.
Nice to talk to you. Look, tell me about your group. What do you aim to do?
The Social Housing Action Campaign brings together tenants and residents who are having problems with their landlords. Mainly, we are focused on housing associations, but we do have members who are private renters and council tenants and residents as well, increasingly actually council tenants and residents. And we give them support on trying to hold their landlord to account, trying to get them to do repairs, the kind of things that you've been talking about actually, repairs, service charges, antisocial behaviour. Those are the really common problems. But they all seem to end up with this at the same bottleneck, which is when they try to make a complaint about it, it's very difficult to get the landlord to do something about it.
Yeah, you sort of feel like you're shouting into the ether, really. Well, what do you make of the situation like this, where when there are problems with contracts, it can mean that tenants really are the people who bear the brunt of it?
That's exactly the point, is that the people who are living in those homes, they don't have a choice just to say, well, I'm going to move somewhere else. I don't like this landlord. There isn't any real, landlords do tend to talk about tenants and residents as customers, but obviously you can't take your custom elsewhere. It's not easy just to pack up your belongings and move to another property. We all know that within the current housing market. So it is very, very difficult. You are left living with the consequences of bad decisions by bad landlords, unfortunately, in far too many instances that we see. And it can have a really devastating impact on people's lives. You know, people have got jobs they're trying to maintain. They've obviously got family commitments. And on top of that, to be having this, what can feel like a war of attrition with your landlord, takes a huge toll on people. And then there are the financial implications. So quite often where we have these kind of corrupt service charging practices, that can have a huge financial impact on people's budgets as well. So it really can take quite a big toll on people's lives.
And Suzanne, many of us will know, I'm rented back in the day, but give us an idea of what it's like, some of the flats that you've seen and people have told you about, what the standards are like and how it affects people.
Yeah, and there's been so much focus on this, and yet we still are seeing the flats where damp, mould and really serious disrepairs are still far, far too common. So it might be things like, the front door isn't locking on the properties, windows aren't locking properly, they can't close them. Obviously, that has an impact on their ability to heat the house, or they can't open them, so that has an impact on their ability to actually ventilate their property. Lifts breaking down is a really common problem. And obviously people who've got mobility problems who are maybe not on the ground floor are really going to struggle whenever a lift breaks down. And the landlords can be very blasé about this. They'll tell them, well, we'll come and get somebody to come out and fix it next week. Well, if you've ended up not able to get back into your property because the lift has broken down, that just isn't good enough. And unfortunately, all of the systems that tenants can use to get remedy, to get redress, are ones that take a very, very long time. I mean, we've had people who, for example, have had water coming in through their electric fittings because there's been a leak somewhere, and they've had to live like that for months. They've had to turn off their electricity and live like that for months because it's taken such a long time for the landlord to come out and do anything about it. So we think there needs to be a much, much faster response. We need to see much stronger mechanisms for holding landlords to account for the state of the property and the neighbourhood. The survey that you're referring to, the tenant satisfaction measures, the scores have been appalling. Across the board, the scores have been appallingly low, except for some of the very small landlords, actually. And these were brought in by the previous government, based on the idea that this was somehow going to drive up landlord performance, and it just isn't. These surveys come out, they show very low satisfaction, very poor performance, but it doesn't change the behaviour of landlords.
Suzanne, appreciate you coming on from the Social Housing Action Campaign. We're going to